Speaking of guys leaving the Baylor football program, they said goodbye to another coach this weekend, it looks like, at least from all the reports we've seen. And that is that Baylor legend, Shawn Bell, and his brother Brian are leaving Waco and are going down to the University of Houston to join Willie Fritz's new staff. Shawn Bell was just moved from quarterbacks coach back to tight ends coach, which he was before Jeff Grimes got there. And now after Jeff Grimes leaves and Spavital comes in, Dave Aranda reassigns him back to tight ends. Of course, Shawn Bell was a quarterback at Baylor, so he wants to coach quarterbacks, and that makes a ton of sense. And Willie Fritz is going to give him that opportunity down at Houston. Shawn's brother Brian joined the staff as a quality control coach after leading my China Spring Cougars to the state championship in 2021 as their head coach. So he's been on the staff 2 years now, up in the booth, and he will now get a position with UH. I think that's just an analyst job again, but probably will be on the offensive side of the ball. Now, there is a link there between the Bell family and Willie Fritz. Fritz was the coach at Sam Houston, where Brian Bell, who I just mentioned, Shawn's younger brother, was a record-setting quarterback there. I mean, by the time he left, he had all the records at Sam Houston. Jeremiah Briscoe has put Bell into second in a lot of those, but led them to 2 FCS national championship games under Willie Fritz as the head coach. And they lost both times to North Dakota State. No shame in that. But had all these records. He was the winningest quarterback in Sam Houston history. I think he might be second in that now, but second in passing yards, second in passing touchdowns, all these great records. So he and Willie Fritz were a pretty good combination out there in Huntsville. Pretty good. And now they will be reuniting at UH. But this as a Baylor fan kind of sucks just from the human standpoint. Shawn Bell I mean, seriously, he is a legend at Baylor at the quarterback position. But before they were anything, I mean, they didn't win games and they didn't have this long, illustrious history of quarterback play. He was near the top of all the record books. I think he was basically at least a 3-year starter at Baylor in some lean years. And by the time he left, the quarterback discussion at Baylor was really Shawn Bell, Don Trull, Cody Carlson, and JJ Joe. Like that, those were the guys before you brought in RG3 and Nick Florence, Bryce Petty, and Seth Russell. These were the guys. And obviously he has the great moment of his pass to Dominique Ziegler to beat A&M for the first time in 20 years or whatever it was, back in, I think it was 2004 sounds right. But Baylor legend from China Spring, which is the suburb of Waco. It's right next door. A lot of coaches actually lived there. He still lived there. His dad was the coach of China Spring forever. He and his brother both played there. They were legends at China Spring, and he got a chance back in 2017 when Matt Rhule took the job here at Baylor to come back to Baylor, and he's been on the staff ever since. And what sucks about it is I think he just felt pushed out. I think he felt pushed out with that move to tight ends coach from his quarterback coach position. And this must just feel like a bitter end for him and Baylor and maybe the Waco area. And, I said, I mean, he still lives in China Spring. His family's there. He's got 3 young kids who are always at China Spring events. I see them there all the time, even though Shawn can't really go to them. So it's like they're still, and Brian and his family too, they're still really intertwined in this community. And it's just kind of the sad nature of sports. I'm not going to cry over it, but it just sucks for these guys that this is kind of the end for them in Waco for now, for a family that's so intertwined in it. But looking at Shawn's experience here at Baylor, it's up and down, man. It's up and down. I know Matt Rhule talked about what a valuable part of the staff he was as the tight end. I think he was tight end and O-line coach, or O-line coach and then tight end coach through Rhule and the early days of Aranda. And they mentioned how important he was, how valuable he was. And then he becomes the quarterback coach the first year of Jeff Grimes. And it paid instant dividends, man. I mean, there's no revisionist history here for the quarterback play we've gotten the last 2 seasons, which has not been bad by any means. But in 2021, he turned Gary Bohannon, who was a big question mark into like a top 5 quarterback in the conference, and a guy who could lead you to a conference championship. And this can't be said enough. I said it a lot about Blake Shapen. I'm going to say his name, Blake Shapen, when he transferred out, but he comes in, Blake does, at the end of a season where there's no room for error for Baylor, and he's outstanding in those last 2.5, 3 games because the quarterback coach had him ready to go. It's not easy for a young kid, especially, to keep up his confidence as a backup quarterback throughout a whole season, especially one where the guy ahead of him is doing so well. But Shawn Bell had him ready to go. And throughout the ups and downs of the last 3 seasons, quarterback has never been the issue. Never. It has not been transcendent, which is something of a problem, but it was never the issue. Baylor's had plenty of issues since then. Quarterback was not one of them. And I guess the knock you can put on him is it was never transcendent, that they never had a quarterback who could win a game for them all by himself. And that's true. And the other knock for not just Shawn Bell, but this whole staff is keeping quarterbacks, keeping them. We've mentioned it before, but Seth Russell was the last Baylor starting quarterback to not play anywhere else afterwards. Jacob Zeno, gone. Had a pretty good season at UAB. Kyron Drones, gone. Leads Virginia Tech to a bowl game that no one expected them to be in this year. Zach Pyron never even walked through the door. I think that was before Shawn Bell. Austin Novosad, swing and a miss at the 11th hour, man. And it's maybe not necessarily Baylor's fault so much that they lost Novosad. They weren't ever going to put up the money that Oregon did. But they clearly didn't put up a great NIL package from what we've heard out of that camp. Thankfully, it sounds like they've turned that around a little bit. And B, they put all their eggs in that basket. And they missed. They missed big time. And because of that, another guy they were looking for in this senior class, 2024, Walker White out of Little Rock, 4-star kid, lit it up in Arkansas. They were way late in that recruiting cycle for him, and they were thankful to just get their hat on the table when he made his decision. But he ends up choosing Auburn, which, yes, is a better program than Baylor, but this isn't national championship caliber Auburn. Okay, they were 6-6, so it's not like, oh yeah, lose Auburn. Of course you're going to lose that battle. So they cannot hold on to these stud quarterbacks. And while again it hasn't been transcendent and it hasn't been bad, Blake Shapen didn't really take a step up this year, which I was expecting. He had a good year, he did, but I thought he got too much flack last year, because I thought he had a decent year. And he didn't really make a huge jump this year. And so it's not one where I can point to that, oh man, he was totally jobbed. Shawn Bell was jobbed. Like he just didn't get the full deck here. But I also can't say, it's going to be a slam dunk hire for Houston. I hope it works out for him. I really do. He does have some experience in the Houston area. He coached high school out there at Magnolia West, which is a suburb there. So it's not like he's, totally sad story that he's leaving Waco. He and his wife have lived elsewhere before. But it stinks. It stinks because of his connections to Baylor. But I can't just sit here and say, man, Baylor just lost a huge part of their offensive staff. And I think in 2021, when he's the quarterback coach, they win the Big 12, they win the Sugar Bowl, they get pretty good quarterback play. I think at that point, he's probably thinking, it's not going to be next year, maybe the year after, but I'm the OC in waiting here. I'm going to be the OC at Baylor at some point here. And that day didn't come. Jeff Grimes was fired, and I don't know that Shawn Bell was maybe expecting a promotion there, but I don't think he expected to have to move positions from quarterback coach to tight end coach. He's a quarterback guy and wants to coach the quarterbacks. That's the chance he's going to get at Houston. Let me know what you think down in the comments about another 2 staff members for Baylor leaving. This is 4 on the offensive end now. with Grimes, Mateos, Stewart, and Shawn Bell. A lot of changes in that room next year. Is it going to be enough? Let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe and share. And thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back tomorrow. We are going to talk a little quarterback and what the heck happened with the Malik Murphy visit. Anyway, this is Locked On Baylor.